So I'm a female, late 30s, and I'm a traveling counselor for a large tour company. We are pretty well known, so I'm not going to drop any names. Stay anonymous, I guess. That being said, what occurred is 100% real. And yes, I know everyone claims that on here, but you'll just have to take my word for it. So as a travel counselor, fancy schmancy way of basically saying I'm travel agent, I book mini cruises. Both my company and many cruise lines offer us in the industry what's known as a family trip to familiarize with what the cruise line offers. So I was approached 2 weeks ago before the holidays with the chance to take such a trip on a 4-night cruise to the Baja Peninsula. It left the day after Christmas. Since my husband had a big guy's trip with his best friend lined up, I thought perfect. My in-laws have been begging us to watch our 7-year-old daughter, so she went to grandma's and I went on the free cruise. What could go wrong, right? A little sand, surf, sun. While it's 66 degrees days are much warmer than the usual teens and below zeros that we're used to up north. The flight was perfect. The embarking went smoothly as butter. And the lovely balcony room I was put in was wonderful. So far so good, right? That night I'm at dinner, and a man sits next to me. So, this kind of struck me as a little odd, as there were several empty seats available. He strikes up a conversation and introduces himself and says he's traveling with his elderly parents, sister, and her family. He's 26, works in communications, and attended college in London. He seems nice. We had a lovely conversation, and I threw in that I'm happily married, and I have a child, etc. Finally, his family arrives to eat, and we part ways. I figured I'll never see him again. The next day I get off of our port, signed up for a Segway tour, and who do I see in line? My new friend and his father, and I assume his oldest nephew, I guess. He of course waves at me, and we make simple chit-chat before starting our tour. After the tour there, the community walks around. I chose to browse the shops and get some pizza. However, I felt like I was being watched or followed or something. I turned around a few times, but I didn't see anyone. So I just shrugged it off and went about my day. So then I ended up going back to the ship after a while. I changed into my bathing suit and go lay out on the deck. It's a perfect 72-degree day, and my skin loves the vitamin D. I ordered a drink and put my wireless headphones in. So, I'm dozing off when I feel hands roughly shaking me. I jolted up, sitting straight up. It's my friend. Although he's frowning, staring at me in disapproval. He's angry and tells me I'm not allowed to show off my body and that I'm disrespecting him and his religion and I'm acting like a slut. By now I have 2 cruise employees I'm friends with. I have taken many cruises and gotten to know a lot of the employees who hear the commotion and they start telling him he needs to leave me alone. Never mind, I'm embarrassed. I tell him I'm a married woman and what I do isn't any of his concern. So then he stomps off and informs me if I was his woman, I'd be sorry. The fuck does that mean? That night, after a few martinis at the piano bar, I settle in my room for the night after talking with my husband through Facebook Messenger. I'm about to doze off when the door starts shaking. It sounded as somebody was violently running into my door. I throw a robe on, look out the peephole, and it was that same guy. He looked crazed. It was a formal night, and he was in formal wear, hair moosed, red face, screaming profanities at me. Luckily, the guy across the hall, pretty much a big guy, opened his door and tells the creep to get the hell out of the hallway before his kids are woken up and that he'll regret it. Guy gives me one last profanity and then leaves. The next morning, the guy across the hall tells me something terrifying. He swears the guy was holding a steak knife in his hand. I informed the cruise director, but I'm not sure what happened after that. I only saw him one more time on the cruise as we disembarked. He was carrying one of his nieces, and I'm just so lucky he didn't see me. At the age of around 6 to 7, I lived next to an old 60-or-so-year-old man named Keith. He would often go running around the streets, and he was very fit for his age. At the time, I lived with my grandmother. She was friends with him and would invite him around for a cup of tea and to gossip. Things were fine for a little while, until one day I looked out the window in my bedroom. From my window I could see clearly into the garden. He was laying on a deck chair masturbating. As I was a child, I didn't understand, of course. I assumed he didn't know I was there. The next day I went to open the curtains in the morning and I saw him doing it again, the same spot. He looked up at me and smiled and carried on. A few weeks later, with me not mentioning anything to my Nana, in case she thought that I was lying about it, I continued to see him almost daily. I started to realize it wasn't right when I noticed he would make effort to make me look by doing things such as making noises outside and shouting my name. Soon after, it was my birthday. My Nana invited him around to my party, as most of our neighbors had been invited too. I was alone in the kitchen getting a glass of water when I heard the kitchen door open and I saw him walk in. He was wearing gold cycling shorts, which very clearly showed off everything. At the time, I thought it was just a fashion choice, but now I see he wanted everyone to look. He said to me, "If you were my daughter, I would never let you leave the house looking so sexy. Thank you for keeping our secret." I don't remember my exact answer, but was something along the lines of, "Sexy is a bad word." He started to pull his shorts down, and I panicked, called my Nana, and she rushed in, seeing him stand over me, quickly pulling his shorts up. He quickly ran out of the house, went back to his house. My grandmother grabbed me and threw me into her room while she called the cops. Thankfully, I never saw him masturbating after this, because my Nana called the police, and he got a warning. In my opinion, this was not enough for what he did. Hell, he just deserves to be in prison, that piece of shit. I lived next to him for the next 6 years, and now I don't even open my window. I'm too scared to. A few weeks ago, I was moving some stuff around in my room and accidentally broke the glass on my window. It was a small crack and didn't fully break, but it was enough for the cold air and condensation to get in and make my window iced up. So I threw a space heater in the room to try to warm up the place a little bit. Now, we have an old house, and if we have 2 heaters on at the same time, the fuses blow and shuts off the power on the backside of the house. The other night got particularly cold, so I plugged in the heater to the outlet closest to my bed. This outlet was controlled by the light switch, so when I turned on the light switch, the heater goes on. It's one of those heaters with the dial and not the power button. When it got time for bed, my room was sufficiently warm, so I turned out my heater. I told my parents my room was warm enough, so they put their heater on for the night. Fast forward to about 2 a.m., and I hear some noise in my brother's room. I think nothing of it and just shake it off. I just laid there, and the noise had stopped. So I laid back down completely to try to fall asleep. Then I started hearing a noise in the kitchen, which was odd. Nobody would be rummaging through the kitchen drawers at this time of night. I started to get a little worried and checked my phone. I see a snap from my brother about 1 a.m., and he was getting wasted with his friends. So I calmed down and think maybe he just got an Uber and just got home or something. I was wide awake at this point. So I checked my texts and emails and got back on Snap. This is when it gets really freaking weird. On the stories part of Snapchat, there was my brother, posted 13 minutes ago at his buddy's house who lived more than 20 miles away. It wasn't him in the house. And of course, with me reading way too many late night murder stories, I had to put an old broken hockey stick in my room in case of emergencies. It's not the best weapon, but it's what I got. So I quickly get out of bed, turn on the light to find it. I had forgotten my fucking heater was plugged in. So as soon as I flipped the switch, the lights went out. But so did the rest of the power. It also just so happens that the end of the house is where the CO detector is. And when the power is cut, it beeps very loud. Whatever the case, this startled whoever was in my house, and the kitchen door opened and slammed quickly. I woke my parents up and let them know what happened. Once we got the power on, we noticed my brother's bedroom window was wide open. We saw footprints beneath my window, but thankfully the ice had frozen the window shut. Whoever was in my house climbed into my brother's room and started rummaging around the house. The bags left under the Christmas tree were torn open, gone through. The kitchen drawers were open. We contacted the police, who took down the information and said that kind of behavior was normal around the holidays. People find empty houses and look for gifts, cash, things of that sort. I don't know what would have happened if I would have gotten face to face with this guy. But thank God I didn't. Thanks for watching. More content and everything else will be consistent. Make sure to go check out my links in the description. My Twitter and Instagram and TikTok links are in the bio. If you enjoyed this, make sure to give a like and comment and tell me how you feel about it. I tend to try to respond to everybody, but I will say I do want to say thank you and that I appreciate all of the love that I've been receiving lately. It gives me motivation and wanting to do it more. So, hopefully I'll see you in the next one.